If I've said it once, I've said it 1,270 times. The world of the paranormal is nothing to trifle with. And then we take a look at the story of a father and son who are having a hard time getting along. This is normal in most families. However, this family may be haunted by a supernatural force, and it hungers for the flesh of the living. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Michelle Morningstar. Woohoo! Yeah, yeah, she's walking on in, flying on the backs of angels. Very angelic entrance, a little show-offy, if I have to say. Michelle Morningstar is actually the last of our Oregon Ghost Conference attendees. I met all these great people at the Oregon Ghost Conference. Michelle was there with her partner, Brian Blackwood. Really, really great folks. And she's an author as well. Brian is an author, and Michelle Morningstar is an author as well. I'll put a link to her books in the show notes. She writes in a genre known as celestial fantasy. So I think that's angels, right? Celestial, or is that... I don't think it's space aliens. It looks like from the book description, it's about angels. You're like, Jason, if you're going to promote these books, if you're going to promote these authors, you should at least read the book. Hey man, I'm all about promoting the community. I think this is so awesome when you guys are producing stuff. And if I can give you any sort of shout out, I'm down. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really about helping everybody grow. Getting the word out. I tell you guys to get the word out about the show. It would be lame if people were saying, hey, I wrote a book. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I guess I should probably read it. I don't think there's probably anything super objectionable in Michelle or Brian's books. You know, I have people, spiritual abortion is like a heavy metal musician. I don't even think that's the right genre. It's even like heavier than that. It's some dude in Russia who creates this hardcore music, and I'm always like, hey man, listen to this. I can't understand it. I don't know what he's saying, but he listens to my show. He can't be half bad. Michelle Morningstar, you're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the Patreon, if you guys can't support the show financially, totally fine. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio or anyone else in our community. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. Brian actually requested that he ride the bunny bicycle a while back. I didn't read that part of his email, so I just gave him a generic vehicle. But Brian, you can ring-a-ding-a-ding the bunny bicycle bell as Michelle Morningstar is loading us up into the Dead Rabbit dirigible. We're all going to climb on board. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Michelle, pilot us all the way out to a little boy's house. It's a beautiful view looking down on the green world below us as we fly out to this boy's house. We don't have an exact location for this story, but I'm telling you, do not mess with this stuff. In the world of paranormal, I know it sounds fun. I know it seems full of glitz and glamour, but beyond it's the opposite of that. It's people getting possessed. Their eyes are bleeding. They're all, save my soul. You know what I mean? Like, you watch movies and stuff like that. It looks alluring. You go, man, I want to be like that. You're watching The Exorcist. You're all like, oh, man, my life's so boring. I wish I could vomit on command and my head could spin around. Oh, man, I'm just some schlub living in a normal world when I really want to live in a paranormal world. Don't hope for this stuff. That's what I'm saying. It's fun to break into a haunted house every so often, or rip the gate off of an old-timey cemetery, walk around with flashlights. That stuff's cool. But you gotta be careful. Let's take a look at this story. We're gonna meet this young woman. all these names we have to make up because it's all, nobody wanted to be connected to this story because some boneheaded moves. In this one, we'll meet this woman, let's call her Julia. She's currently dating this guy, Chris. And a few months ago, they decided to move in with a friend. They have a friend, they're like, hey, Diana, made up name. Diana, hey, me and Chris are wondering if we could live at your place for a while. Yeah, sure. I do have the 2 boys. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're pretty rambunctious, but I got a room you guys could sleep in. Thanks, Diana. You're really doing us a solid. So Julia and Chris move in, and their bedroom is right next to the boys' bedroom. But they're little kids, right? One of them's 2, one of them's 4. It's not like they're going to be up all night playing Super Smash Bros. No, it's not like they're little kids. One's 2 and one's 4. It's not like they're going to be up late at night with their teenage friends playing Super Smash Brothers till 3 in the morning. They got a bedtime. It's probably like 7:30 tops. They're in bed. Julia says our room, it's right next to the boys, so we're friends, right? We're friends with these 2 little kids. They're cute little boys. We'll interact. But I don't like going into their room. I always get this really, really creepy feeling. I'm really uneasy being in their room. In fact, I don't even like walking past their door. There's something about it. Something about that room I don't like. It's not the boys. I like the boys. It's their room. The mom leaves their bedroom door open a crack. So, she can go in and check on them, and you can just, if they're sleeping late at night, you don't want to wake them up, she can just kind of slowly open the door and look in. Doesn't have to make a ton of noise, right? Leave the door open a crack. I'm sure the boys like that too. A little bit of light coming in from the hallway. Helps anyone sleep. You don't feel so alone. Well, one night, Chris was walking to the bathroom. He was walking down the hallway to the bathroom. And as he's approaching the boys' room, the 4-year-old, let's call him Mikey, Chris hears Mikey in the bedroom talking. What? It's past their bedtime. Who's he talking to? That 2-year-old, he can't hold the conversation to save his life. Who could Mikey be talking to? So Chris sticks his head in the door, and he sees Mikey laying in bed, but he's facing the closet. And Mikey goes, No, I can't go. I'm in bed. Chris is like, what in the world? Maybe he's talking in his sleep or something? I don't know. Who's he talking to? And Chris reaches in to turn on the bedroom light. He's kind of peeking through the door, and he hears all this, and then he reaches his arm in to turn on the bedroom light. And that's when he hears Mikey say, I see you. And Mikey is standing there right by the door. He's standing there as Chris has his arm in the dark room. He's already creeped out to turn on the light. Mikey is now standing in the door and looking at Chris through the cracked open door. Mikey turns, walks away, and gets back in bed. Chris got up to use the bathroom he just did in his pants. He's like, what was that? And he tells Julia, he's like, hey, you won't believe what just happened. You literally won't believe what just happened. It sounds like it's at a horror movie. He goes, that kid, Mikey, was talking, and then he popped right a jump scare. I didn't know those were things that happen in real life. Crazy. And Julia's like, I told you, that room, there's something about the room. I don't think it's the boys, but that room has some weird energy. And Chris is like, yeah, I guess that's a good way to say it. Well, the next morning, Julia is awake. She's drinking coffee. And Mikey walks in. They're in the dining area. Mikey walks in. And he goes, it seems unprompted. Julia didn't ask, how did you sleep last night? And he's like, his eyes are all blurry. Apparently unprompted, Mikey walks in and he goes, I saw something last night. I saw something in my room last night. Julia's like, what happened? What did you see? goes, well, it was all black, and it had hands. And you're like, oh, thanks, theater of the mind, kid. Like, I can picture it already. It's all black and had hands. Like, 10 hands? No, just 2. 2 hands. It was all black. It had 1 eyeball. You're like, okay, that's notable. I mean, a phantom from beyond the veil is notable enough, but usually if someone goes, yeah, saw a demon the other night, he had hands, and not a multitude of hands, or the amount of hands a normal person has. But this thing had 1 eye, so that's notable. And the fact that it's appearing in a little kid's bedroom. But Julia goes, oh, that's super creepy. Did you talk to it when you saw this thing? And Mikey goes, I did. I did talk to this thing. Julia later learns from Mikey's grandma that Mikey's been having some nightmares lately, some pretty disturbing dreams, and he wakes up screaming. Julia goes, oh, okay, so I mean, now there could be, he could just be having nightmares. He's seeing this phantom, he's talking in his sleep, he's having these disturbing dreams, maybe this is all something like that, but it's possible that there's something paranormal going on here. Because I feel there's something wrong with that room, and I actually felt there's something wrong with that room way before Mikey started creeping us out. So she's leaning more towards the paranormal. She says, me and Chris, we're spiritual people. My concern, this is still Julia talking, she goes, my concern is that I don't really know if it's negative. I don't know if this completely pitch black being with 1 eye is a negative force. And she has this quote. She goes, quote, this is what I was getting at. This is what I was getting at. People don't know what they're dealing with. Let me get to this quote. Right now, I'm more focused on learning what is actually there and trying to communicate with it, if possible, before I make any decisions. Boyfriend and I, so Chris and I, only moved in a few months ago, so we're still learning the energy left here, whether it's from the previous tenants or predating the complex itself. I'll try to update you if anything else happens. And you go, Jason, that's actually pretty reasonable, right? Like, she's not jumping to conclusions. She doesn't automatically think it's a demon. She doesn't think everything spiritual is from hell. You go, Jason, that's actually a pretty reasonable standpoint. I don't know why you're saying that is like she's messing with it, she's doing anything like that. I would argue that yes, you can, I'm sure, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but you can possibly have a entity that looks creepy, that looks inhuman, and is good. I'm sure that's possible. I can't think of any stories off the top of my head. And you go, Jason, what about those biblically accurate angels I've been hearing so much about? I mean, that's like a ring of eyeballs. That doesn't look very human. I would argue, and I know that's how the Bible describes angels. I would argue that if an actual angel manifested today in front of a person, they would look like an angel from the Renaissance. That would be the form they would take, because that is the form that people are most familiar with them. If you saw someone in long flowing robes with white wings, you would go, that's an angel. It could be a demon disguised as an angel. You can definitely have evil pretend to be good, but it doesn't behoove good spirits to appear evil. That's my first thing. And I also think the biblically accurate angel things is an example of just the raw power, right? In an abstract world where language and the written word doesn't really exist in regions, and power is everything in the Middle East. Power is what decided whether or not you lived or died that day. There's nothing more powerful than an abstract form of fire, flame, 50 wings, and a million eyes. You just saw a dude show up with wings, you're like, supper time, right? I'm gonna see. Maybe he's a bird. I'm gonna eat him. Because not all angels appeared like that. Even in the Bible, angels would often disguise as men, i.e. Sodom. The angels came down, they appeared to be men, and everybody wanted to rape them. So God's like, okay, that's what I told you guys was going to happen. I knew it. I'm going to blow this city up. Tale of Sodom and Gomorrah. It wouldn't make sense. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not even saying that we haven't covered it before, but I can't think of a time where a positive entity takes a terrifying form. Actually, you could argue yesterday we talked about souls where their body isn't properly buried and they show up as like these emaciated old men wrapped in chains. That's not, I mean, that's a neutral soul. You know, like that guy is in the grave. We don't know how he got there. Maybe he was a bad person. Now I'm going back on that. We can't have that. But what I'm saying is if someone came up to you and said, hey, woke up in the middle of the night last night. I saw a pitch black entity. It looked like shadows. It was darker than a shadow. It was blacker than black. It had one eyeball. It woke me up in the middle of the night and wanted me to go somewhere with it. I'm going to come from the pitch that that's a negative spirit. I'll go, I could be wrong. just guessing. That's negative. Now, if it showed up as a very positive spirit, I could say, well, that could still be negative. Donald Duck should not appear in your bedroom in the middle of the night and try to get you to go in the closet. Come on, kids, let's go to the closet. You're like, Donald, no. An evil entity could take the form of Donald Duck, for example, or many other copyright characters. Hey, boo-boo, I'm gonna kidnap this kid tonight. Oh, Yogi. Those are my only two impressions. I'm sure I have a good Papa Smurf in me somewhere, but you know, they're saying, I don't know, maybe it's just the energy of this place. And you go, Jason, that's not... You're the one jumping to conclusions, Jason. This person is just trying to be neutral. She updated this. You know, she goes, I'll update you if there's anything else. She goes, you know, we'll just try to see what we can learn about the spirit. She updated it a few days later. Her boyfriend, Chris, comes home from work one day, and Mikey, it's not late at night from what I understand. I think it's just like during the day. I could be wrong, though. This is one of those things that, regardless of what hour it is, you should be concerned. Chris comes home and sees Mikey standing in the hallway with a big smile as he's scratching at his own face. So she's like, yeah, we're drunk. She goes, once the kids leave, we're going to sage the place. Because something is not right here. And that was posted online. That was posted by someone going by the name Icy Company 6163. It was just a couple months ago, I believe. It's fairly recent. I come across this a lot. I might even have another story or two coming up that's fairly similar, but usually I try to spread them out. Yeah, it's posted 2 months ago, and there's been no update since. She posted something earlier in the month about not being friends with somebody anymore. Whatever, I don't care about that stuff. I mean, unless the friend was a one-eyed monster man from the closet. She's like, he used to be so cool. And then he started making kids scratch their face, and that's a red line for me. I come across this all the time. People have these really troubling paranormal events, and really their only experience with the paranormal is what they see on television or what they just pick up in the culture. And it's funny because most people think of ghosts and spirits and stuff as scary, as bad, as evil, and you want to get rid of it as quick as possible. You don't want to be anywhere around it. And here's the thing, you may end up pushing away a neutral spirit or even a good spirit. And that would suck, right? I understand not necessarily jumping to conclusions, but seeing something and going, oh, I don't think that is super negative. Like, it's basically, to me, it feels like you're a progressive when it comes to the spiritual. You're like, you know what, demons, shmemons, all of that stuff from organized religion. I don't think demons are that bad. Sitting there, you're growing bat wings, you're flying through hell. You're like, look at me, look at how open-minded I am. I think, like, you can say, you can have it both ways. You can say there's a lot of dangerous entities out there. And even if you don't know a lot about this stuff, you just pick it up from movies and from the culture, you go, yeah, maybe not every ghost is bad, but I think it's okay to treat every ghost as bad until you know otherwise. That's what I'm saying. I know that's also a thing a racist might say about other ethnic groups, and I don't agree with that, but when I say it about ghosts, then it's okay. I think that you should. I know I've told this story a couple times on the podcast. I'm going to tell it one more time because not everyone listens to every episode. I'm going to make it much shorter. My place here is haunted. And when I first moved in, I had a feeling. I didn't see anything, but I had a feeling that there was an old man in my closet, and he was very skinny. And he was only wearing underwear, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've seen this or felt this. And I felt that he had hung himself or had died tragically. I think originally I felt that it was that he had hung himself, but and he was in my closet. And it's interesting because my closet has a deadbolt on the outside, which most closets don't. Most closets don't even have locks. Mine has a deadbolt on the outside, and the thing, he never personally did anything to me, but the idea was I was really creeped out by this man in my closet. And, but it never affected me. But I still felt a little off about it. And where I live, my neighbors have experienced ghosts in their residences as well. Because they've told me about it. They're like, oh, there's a ghost in my place too. I'm all jealous. I was like, oh, I thought he was on in my place. I thought he was only my old phantom living in my closet. No, so I was on and off about it. I ended up buying some sage. Because I was like, I'm going to smudge him out. Because I don't know what his intentions are. It's kind of creepy to have an old man in your closet. But then I would be like, whatever. I bought the sage, but I wouldn't smudge. I was like, whatever. And just time passed. Every so often I'd think, I should smudge the place. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't creeping me out. It wasn't like I was taking the shower and he was peeking around the shower curtain. Nothing like that. He wasn't tickling my feet while I was sleeping. Nothing creepy. He wasn't hiding under my bed. But I remember one day, I don't know what prompted it. I don't think it was anything. I think it was just that I had bought this sage. I remember thinking, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow I will actually smudge him out. Because I got this sage, and I might as well do it. I'm just 100% going to do it tomorrow. And here's the thing. I spent a lot of time sleeping on my couch. I was sleeping on my couch a lot. I have a bed. I have a bedroom. And part of me was thinking, well, I don't really like sleeping that close to the haunted closet. But I don't think that's the reason why. I'm not trying to brag. This isn't brag. This isn't a humble brag. And you might not even think it's a brag at all. You might think that I'm psychologically broken. I've spent a lot of my life sleeping next to people. When you sleep on a couch, it's like sleeping next to somebody. You have that physical sensation. I only date women who are two-dimensional and sleep at a 90-degree angle. I was like, oh, you remind me of Angelica Angle. When you sleep on a couch, you have that same impression of sleeping against somebody. You're like, Jason, that's really sad. That's not bragging. If you think that's bragging, Jason, that's even sadder. I don't sleep on the couch that much anymore. But, in my 20s and 30s, I used to be sleeping next to somebody. So you sleep on a couch. You're like, Jason, you're like one step away from getting an anime character pillow. But it's a pillow with a picture of a couch on it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna roll it. I slide a big piece of wood into it to make it nice and firm. Apparently, I used to date Pinocchio. It's like, oh, yes, nice and hard and knobby. Just like I like it. I'm looking through furniture catalogs. I'm like, ooh la la. Look at the legs on this one. Anyways, I sleep on my couch a lot. At the time, I thought it was because I was scared of being, not necessarily scared, but it'd be weird. You gotta hold a man in your closet, right? So anyways, I sleep on my couch. Now I think it's because, it's less, I'm used to sleeping next to people, and then I sleep on the couch. But anyways, my point being is that particular night, I said I'm going to smudge the place tomorrow. I'm just going to get it over with. And then, it's really weird. This is one of those things that it's like in between a dream and the waking world. Maybe he was communicating with me while I was dreaming. Maybe I actually woke up. But anyways, in the middle of the night, I am laying on my couch and I wake up. Again, I don't know if it was a full dream, a half dream, 100% real. But my couch looks right into my kitchen, and I have like this doorway that leads into the kitchen. And he was standing there in the doorway, and the kitchen light was on, so he was illuminated from behind. He wasn't just wearing his underwear. He didn't look super... He wasn't dressed up like Mr. Moneybags either. He was just standing there. And he didn't give off such a creepy presence. And he's standing there, and he goes, "Hey, dude, I'm like... really, really sorry that I've been creeping you out. That was not my intention. Like, I feel really bad. Never what I was trying to do." He goes, "But please don't smudge me out of here. Like, there's the wrong, you get the wrong feeling from me, I understand, but please don't smudge me." And I woke up the next morning, and I've never smudged the place. I still actually have the sage. It's just sitting in a drawer. Probably doesn't even work anymore. It's like 11 years old at this point. So yeah, that's how I came to an agreement with the old man in my closet. I still believe that he's in there. I don't record in the haunted closet anymore. But for quite a while, I was recording in there because it got so noisy out here, especially during the summer. And it was creepy, I'm not going to lie. It was creepy being in there. And now I actually hang my clothes up in there. I wasn't doing that before. I pretty much wasn't using my closet. I would store winter gear up there, or things that I would use once in a while, but it wasn't a door that I open all the time. Now I'll actually sleep with it open. I don't prefer it. I would rather not, but sometimes I'm either too lazy or there's too much stuff in the closet, or for whatever reason. Oh, I know, when I recorded in the closet, it would get really hot, so I'd have to open the closet up and turn on the air conditioner in the bedroom, and it would lower the temperature of everything. And if I wanted to take a nap because it's so cold and I'm like all sleeping, I would have to sleep with the door open, so it would continue to get cold. And I'm not necessarily creeped out by him anymore. Sometimes I'm creeped out by the idea that there's a ghost in such proximity to me. But I'm not creeped out by him. That, he does not bug me. And so really what I'm getting at here is that until he explained to me what was going on, like until he was like, "Dude, I totally didn't mean to scare you. Like, I'm sorry about that." I treated it as hostile because I didn't know. In the lack of evidence, I think it is healthy to say I'm dealing with something that is far more powerful than many things you will come about in your normal life. When you have spirits that are able to just manifest so you can see them or can interact with them, very, very powerful. I think it's healthy. Before, when I had and he's still here, the ghost is still here, but imagine if he was negative and I go, "Oh, I'm all into ghosts, I'm all into contacting the paranormal, let's get a Ouija board, let's talk to him." And all of a sudden I'm giving him all this power and all of this energy. And I don't know what his intentions are. I don't know who he is. I don't even know if it's human. I mean, now I believe those things. Now I know what he is. He's a ghost, he's human, stuff like that. But at that time, if you don't know and you're like, "Well, I don't want to be like a ghostess." That's like a racist version of a ghost person. And I don't want to be ghostess. So I'm going to accept with love and peace in my heart that every ghost is equal and none of them did anything wrong. No, you should treat them as possibly hostile until you know otherwise. Everyone deserves a second chance, even a ghost who's technically already getting a second chance at life. Yeah. Especially when kids are involved. I come across these stories a lot. We've covered a few on the show. People are like, yeah, we want to try to communicate with it. I really believe in the healing power of the chakras. And then all these sort of shenanigans start up. And when your kids are involved, their psychic defenses are so much lower. They have a easier time seeing spirits and interacting with spirits. And at the same time, their psychic defenses are much lower. And they're perfect targets for a hostile or an evil entity. So treat it as hostile until you know otherwise. Don't treat it as good until you know otherwise. That's what I'm saying. And I see a lot of people doing it the opposite. They want to show how progressive they are when it comes to the world of the poltergeists. But they are playing a dangerous, dangerous game. Michelle, Morningstar, I'm going to toss you the keys to the world. Famous Carpenter Copter. Get Brian off that bike. He's been riding around the whole time. He's doing donuts around these two possessed kids. Brian, get on board too. We're leaving behind this house. I wish this family the best. Michelle, fly us all the way out to a pool. We're going to take a look at this story. It was posted by a man we'll call Timothy. The year is 2019. And Timothy's in a laboratory, and he has these two beakers. And he's like, well, the juice in beaker A is red. However, if I look at the fluid in beaker B, it's green. Maybe if I combine these two. Blah, 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 blah. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. All the other laboratory scientists are clapping, and there's like this foam shooting out of this beaker, this third beaker. He's a virologist, by the way. He's not a chemist. They're all coughing up organs. You invented super Ebola. They're all dying. He's like wearing a full gas mask. He's like, that's kind of your bad. He's a virologist. He's working in a lab in 2019. And one of the things that they're researching is coronavirus, not the coronavirus. Coronavirus is a type of virus, a type of flu. And he's sitting there and he's like looking at this little spiky bug roll around. He's looking at it on the microscope and he's like, fantastic. I've seen this 2 million times. I had to look at this all through college, but someone taps him on the shoulder. Hey, Timothy, you won't believe what's happening, dude. You know how we're studying the coronaviruses here? Well, there's a new one. There's a new virus on the market. And Timothy's like, what? There's a new one? Is it like the flu but evolved? And his buddy's like, no. So some people might say it was made in a lab. It's so contagious. They're going to say it was natural. But there's a lot of things about it that seems like it could have been some sort of a bioweapon. At most, at least, some idiot was mixing two tubes of beakers and he created this. But they'll probably say someone was eating a bat. And Timothy's like, that's insane. They go, yeah, this stuff's coming out of China. Luckily, they're doing a pretty good job clamping down on it over there, so it probably won't hit us in America. And Timothy's like, oh, that'll be reassuring, because when a virus is made in a laboratory and then it is released, it can do a lot of damage. Just ask all the people who have Lyme disease. But by February 2020, we were a month away from the lockdowns. People in the news were still saying that's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Book a plane ride to China. Book a plane ride to all 7 continents. Spread it as much as you can. Timothy goes and hangs out. This is then February 2019. He goes to hang out with his dad. His whole family. And they're just talking about it. His dad, we're going to call him Justin. They're talking about it, and his son's a virologist. If anybody knows anything about this, at this time especially, Timothy's like, this thing in China could get really bad. Like, we're seeing how catchy it is and how hard it is to treat and all this stuff. And Timothy's dad goes, you know what? It's no big deal. If a couple hundred people die over in some other country, who cares? It's not going to happen here. China is a dirt hole. Timothy's dad said, that's not me. That's not me. China's a dirt hole. It's a cesspool. It's an open sewage plant disguising themselves as a country. America is clean and beautiful and perfect. The reason why the Chinese are getting so sick is because they have a country that is disgusting. Americans will never have to deal with the coronavirus because our streets are so clean and everything is perfect. And Timothy's like, Dad, that has nothing. First off, China's not disgusting. China has magnificent cities. It's a beautiful country. Also, it wouldn't matter. This disease can spread anywhere. But Timothy's outnumbered. Like, his aunt and his uncle are like, yeah, no, we actually agree with your dad. Like, it's overseas. It's not going to get here. Who cares? Da, 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 da. And they get in this huge argument about it. And he's like, guys, you don't understand how bad this can get. It's in the United States already. It's just a matter of how quickly it spreads. Oh, Timothy, you're such a wet blanket. You're such a wet blanket from all the sweat that's produced when you have coronavirus. He's like, they made fun of him. They just kind of laughed him off. I think we've all been there if we've ever tried having a political discussion with your family. See, me and my father, we actually have the unique superpower, where whenever we meet each other, which is usually like once a year, both of our politics can change in the course of a year. We can be radically different on a totally different issue. So whenever we meet, we don't know if we're going to agree or disagree, but I always know in my head, well, next time I meet him, he's going to believe something completely different, and I'll probably believe what he's saying right now. We probably both just have dementia. We're like, oh, what? The Ottoman Empire, that was the best. They get in this argument, he gets laughed at. Eventually, it's a party, it's a family party. Booze is flowing. Timothy and his dad find themselves in the heated pool. Spa is what I would call it, but maybe it's just a normal-sized pool that's heated up. They're in there, they're drinking scotch. And Timothy does sound like a bit of a lunkhead, because you got to know when to fold him. He already got laughed at because he was bringing up the whole coronavirus thing in the first place. Now him and his dad are drinking scotch alone in this heated pool, and Timothy brings it back up. Like, I don't know what he expected to happen. Maybe he could prove one more point. Maybe he could change his dad's mind. But this time it's not just talking about the coronavirus and whether or not it's going to change American society for a couple months. Justin, Timothy's dad, starts insulting Timothy. You're good for nothing. You go away to college, you think you're better than all of us. You and your wife, I can barely even stand her. You just sit around the house, leeching off of all the good taxpayers of society. Your wife, she's horrible. I hate her. Your wife, I can't stand her. And you can sit there on the couch next to her and both of you guys talking about whatever dumb stuff you're talking about. And Timothy's just sitting there. He's like, what in the world is going on? His dad has turned this into a personal fight, like actually picking on his own son and his daughter-in-law. And Justin is getting madder and madder and madder. And he's basically just so angry at this point. Timothy is sitting there and he thinks for a moment, Dad might hit me. Like, he looks mad enough and he's acting mad enough, he might actually take a swing at me. And he's never seen his dad this angry before. And he's looking at his dad and he's looking at that rage in his father's eyes. He's watching the muscles tense up. He's expecting his father to take a swing on him. And that's when Timothy realizes the man in front of him doesn't look like his father. Timothy said, the first thing I noticed was his teeth. My dad's a dentist. He always had perfect teeth. Kind of have to, right? hand him some busted up grill and being like, oh, time to work on your teeth today, ma'am. He had perfect teeth, but now his dad's teeth were black. The gums looked like dead flesh, just white gums with black teeth, and the bottom row of his teeth looked jagged. His dad's face continued to contort as he was yelling at Timothy. And Timothy watched as his father's eyes seemed to sink deeper and deeper into the skull. His neck and his chest were nearly pitch black. He could see these physical changes in his father, and at the same time, Timothy felt the water of the pool begin to get colder and colder and colder. Timothy, at this point, couldn't even understand what his father was saying. He goes, my father was just speaking, yelling. He was yelling, he was getting louder and louder, and at the same time, his voice was getting deeper and deeper, and it sounded like he was just speaking gibberish. I could not understand a word he was saying. And in the middle of it, Timothy just goes, wait, what? Almost like asking, what did you just say? Like, I don't understand what you're saying. He just said, wait, what? And in that moment, his dad stops, smiles, and everything returns to normal. The black flesh of his neck and chest are gone. His teeth are back to normal. His eyes are in their proper place. And the father looks at Timothy and says, well, that's what people will say when they argue about this anyways. At that point, the dad kind of started cracking jokes, like trying to diffuse the situation. And Timothy's stunned. He doesn't really know what to take of this, because two things happened that he didn't expect. One, his father started to turn into a monster. But Timothy, you think it's late, we're out in the pool, we've been drinking, and light can do funny things. Normally you're not in the pool talking, and you're looking at someone from a different angle than you're used to, and a lower light setting than you're used to, with different type of lights, backyard lights, pool lights, and adding the alcohol in it. It'd be easier to look at someone and see their face distorted in one way or the other. But you could explain away all that stuff. He couldn't figure out why his father was saying such hurtful things about him. He had never heard his dad talk to him like that before. Him and his wife. Timothy was thinking he didn't bring it up, right? Because this was so insane. But he thought, how could my dad be so mean to me? This wasn't us talking about the coronavirus. He was making personal attacks towards me and my wife. And that was so out of character for his father. 4 months later, COVID is in full swing. Timothy's father, Justin, started to have some throat issues. My throat, I'm having trouble, with like digestion and breathing. It just hurts. My throat feels inflamed. I bet it's because I always have to wear those stupid N95 masks at work. Bet you it has something to do with that. My throat was totally fine before all this nonsense. Stupid masks. His throat pain and other issues related to it started to get worse. So he does get it checked out, and he's diagnosed with a rare and fast-acting thyroid cancer. It's not impossible to beat, but we got to get started. We got to take care of this. So obviously, like all of those stupid fights you're having with your family about coronavirus or politics or whatever, in a situation like this, you got to circle the wagons. You got to circle the wagons and come back. Sometimes that's hard, right? Sometimes that's really hard. I've had a lot of my friends who have been kicked out of their homes because they were gay. And that they just were like, I'm never talking to my father again. Ever. I hadn't met a lot of people like that in my life. Totally sucks. Absolutely sucks. But sometimes if it is just politics, right? If it's just something that, who cares, right? The president's a puppet anyways, right? The deep state runs all. The real people who run the world, they don't get elected. Who's president, politics, blah, da, 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 da. You got to circle the wagons. You got to be there for the people who would be there for you. So Timothy puts all that aside. Obviously, he's deeply wounded. He didn't forget about what his dad said to him, but, you don't want your father to pass away either. Well, they end up having this other family gathering there, and Timothy's there with other members of the family, and the dad is kind of talking about the stories from his life and things that he had done. And he's kind of just, he's not going to die tomorrow, but again, they're all afraid that he will. And he's kind of in this mode where he's like reminiscing about things. And Dad is standing there and he's talking about things that he's proud of, stuff that he's done in his life that he feels like he worked really hard for, he achieved, he got it. And then, a warning, because I normally don't cuss on this show, but I don't think I can do this without cussing. So this, maybe turn it down if you're listening to this at work. I don't normally cuss on the show, but Dad's telling these stories, and he's like, oh, I did this, and I'm super proud of it, I can't believe that, and then he's, normally it would be bragging, right, but he might die, so you kind of gotta allow him to brag a bit. And he's telling all this stuff, and the family's like, yeah, that was a really good accomplishment, yeah, man, you really did do that. And Dad's talking about all this stuff, and then in the middle of it, he turns to Timothy and blurts out in this low, gravelly voice, a voice that Timothy had not heard since the pool, since the incident in the pool. He hears this deep, guttural voice. Timothy's father turns, looks right at Timothy, and says, and fuck you for thinking I don't deserve everything I've earned. And Timothy what do you say to that? What do you possibly say to that? But it wasn't just that cut down. It was the voice. Timothy said, I just got up and I walked out of the room. He said I was visiting. My home was a 10-hour drive away. I'd planned on staying here multiple days. I go back into my room and I'm thinking, I think I'm just going to leave tonight. Like, that's insane. I don't know what's wrong with my dad, but I'm getting scared. But again, it's two different things. Like, he had that same voice he had in the pool, but also, why is he picking on? That doesn't even make sense. I've never thought that my dad got stuff he didn't earn or deserve. And what's interesting about this, the thing is that the first time when they were in the pool, there was no one else around. There was a bunch of people sitting there listening to all of Dad's stories. And as Timothy is walking out of the room, after the silence because everyone's stunned that he said this, Timothy's walking into his room, people start going, Dad, why would you say that? Oh my God, honey, where did that come from? Why would that's so, what's going on? Everybody heard him say this, and nobody understood why he would say it. The next day, Timothy's still at the house. He hasn't driven 10 hours home. And his dad walks up to him and goes, Tim, I'm so sorry about yesterday. But they're telling me that I cussed at you and I said that you don't think I deserve stuff or I didn't get stuff. I go, I don't remember saying that, son. I don't remember saying that at all. I would never say that to you. Tim, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. I don't remember saying that. I never would say that, but everyone's saying I said that, and I'm scared, Tim, because I didn't say that to you. Timothy says his dad is crying. He's watching his father cry, and his dad's like, I don't remember any of that. And I'm sorry for saying that, but I don't remember saying that. Which makes you think that he doesn't remember what happened in the pool either. Because what Timothy guesses is that his father is possessed by something. He posted this underneath the name Callus88. He titled this, I legitimately feel like I saw my father get possessed. And he has these two instances. He goes, the first time I saw a physical change, the second time was months later. It was the same tone, the same voice, the same message, just hate towards me. He says he doesn't remember doing it. Just under 2 years from that pool incident, just under 2 years later, Timothy's father dies. Not from the cancer, though. This cancer, they were able to stabilize it, but it's not cured. He's stage 4 cancer. But what ended up killing him was they were giving him such a high radiation dose in that area to stop the tumor. It caused him very, very bad throat damage. He got an infection in his neck. It went septic. They then put in a feeding tube, which nicked his bowel, causing a blood clot in his neck to come loose. He has a massive stroke and he dies. It's a heartbreaking story. Sad story. It's a dark story. It's a story where a son looks at his father and thinks that he might have been possessed due to these changes in him. I do think there's some interesting parallels, though, to where the changes were and his disease, the cancer, and to how he would eventually die. The skin of the neck and the chest was turning black, and that's where he was going to have not just the thyroid cancer, but also these other nicks and wounds and infections in his body as well. Watching the face distort, we've talked about this before on the show, watching the face distort in low light settings, that's actually an old parlor trick. That's why you can take a candle or a flashlight and go into your bathroom, shut off the main light and hold it on your face. Eventually you'll see a monster face appear. You can do it without the light, but it's just easier because low light settings, our eyes will start to play tricks on you. Just the face changing, it could be that, plus mixed with the alcohol, but the flesh of the skin changing, the pool water getting colder and colder, it did feel like there was something in his dad that was not just changing his father's physical appearance to maybe match this dark supernatural force inhabiting this body, but also drawing off of the energy in the area. Because Timothy also said the water was getting colder and colder and colder, and since it was already heated, it's producing energy to be warm. It's like that's a huge power source for some sort of supernatural creature. And generally, ghosts, I don't think this was a ghost, but ghosts are very strong around water. Don't know that necessarily correlates to demons, but I figured I'd just point that out. He also said the lights of the pool started to seem that they were getting dimmer and dimmer. But it's not like the bulbs themselves are like, I think it was, again, like, it's that first narrative, it's hard to really look into because he was drinking. He was drinking during the party, and now he's drinking scotch. It's real. If that was the only part of the story, I never would have told you it. If it was just about two guys getting drunk and one of them started looking weird, that's the alcohol. It's the second half of the story that makes you go, okay, so now we have multiple witnesses. Now we have the father not remembering. Now we have a different setting, and the same thing is kind of happening. But when we look at where the illness is and the transformations in his body, very interesting. A man who takes great pride in his teeth now has distorted teeth, deformed teeth. Is very interesting connection there as well. And here's the thing, like, it's possible that his father's possessed or was possessed. What's creepy is, what was the point of this possession? Was it simply to kill the dad? Did this demonic force show up to just feed off of the father and cause demons? A lot of times, can't go on too long about this because the show, it's already running long, but it's so long. Usually the last week episodes is really long because I know I won't be able to talk for the next 2 weeks. We'll wrap it up like this. I don't know if the father himself was possessed. It does kind of sound like that. Demons, this is a thing people get mixed up with movies. Lucifer, some people call him Lucifer, some people call him the devil, some people call him a host of different names. Beelzebub, there's all sorts of names. But the king of hell, whatever name he goes by, he has grand plans. His goal is to eventually continue the war on heaven, to conquer earth, to do all these things. Demons are very mercenary in their actions. A singular demon is not worried about conquering the planet and once again storming the gates of heaven and finally leading Lucifer to take the throne that he's wanted for so long. They're not super concerned about the big picture. As far as we know, demons are actually, I would argue, more studied than ghosts. Because there's been a reason to study demons. People go, well, ghosts don't exist, but there are very, very religious people who believe in demons. They don't believe in ghosts. I think most Protestants, you would fall into that category. They're like, no, ghosts aren't real, but demons are, and demons are trying to do this. Demons are all about singular goals. They're very mercenary in their actions. If they see a target of opportunity, they will take it. If they see a family that is having financial troubles and they believe they can sneak in and start to feed off of that energy and cause chaos there, they'll do it. It has nothing to do with the grand plan. It doesn't mean that this kid was going to grow up to be one of Jesus's 10 top generals during the Battle of Armageddon. No, it was just a kid. It was just this family that this demon somehow is attracted to this location. Whether the demon was already there when the family moved in, whether someone in the neighborhood or one of these kids was messing around with the Ouija board or something supernatural, whether they purposely attracted something in or accidentally attracted something in, it just stumbled in like a bumblebee flying up a girl's skirt. Doesn't matter. Very mercenary in their actions. The first story with the silhouette with the one eye, if that's demonic, it really doesn't care who's there. It could have been a stoned 20-year-old girl, and it would still, if it wanted to, try to mess with her. If you don't have any protection against it, and even worse, if you're curious about it and you're trying to kind of tempt it, you're trying to summon it yourself, it's going to cause problems. They're super mercenary in their actions, and if they can ruin a singular family, if they can take a man who is just a man. He is not the John Connor of the Bible. He's just the dude going through life and end up helping him. I don't think demons cause these things 100%, but they definitely don't make them easier to get rid of. But helping this man, encouraging him to have a pornography addiction, to have a gambling addiction. I don't think demons give you the addiction, but I think they can help you stay in that state of mind, feeding off the chaos. And so if this demon entered this family, I'm not necessarily saying the demon gave him cancer. I mean, I don't think that's impossible. If that was their ability, they think that's all they would ever do. Because it's not just that they were killing this guy, think about all of the distraught emotions that come around someone in your family having a disease. Especially a disease that may be terminal. Like everything, like I said, everything stops. And all the focus, you circle that wagon. You circle those wagons, right? You kind of change a lot. Sometimes people move. Sometimes you have people go, you know what? I have this good career out here in Silicon Valley, but my mom in Tucson, I got to be with her. So I'm leaving. I don't think that demons necessarily can cause cancer. I think, because again, if they did, that's all they would do. I think that it latched onto him. I don't know how. I think the why was just because he was there. And at the very least, was breaking that father-son bond. And to a demon, that's enough. A demon does not care about the big picture. It just likes to destroy people. And it might not hit a rim shot, right? It might get a dad to be a family annihilator and kill everybody and then blow his brains out. And everyone in the community is like, what in the world was that? You could not have met a nicer family. And people don't understand. And it was because a demon was involved in that. It's a crazy story. It really is. I mean, I could go on and on about this stuff. He probably did see this darkness. And the sad thing about this is whether or not the story would be better if it was a demon, because then Timothy could tell himself his dad never said those hateful things. He could go, well, my dad was possessed when he said those things about me and my wife. Timothy's going to remember those things for a long, long time. Those things his father said. So he can go, my dad didn't say them. This demonic force inside of him made him say them. But he doesn't have any proof of that. That's his theory. But even though that may be the case, he'll still remember his dad saying them. He'll still remember his dad looking at him in that pool and saying those hurtful words, and Timothy's going to carry those words. Some of the last words his father ever directly said to him were full of hate. Timothy said, me and my dad didn't get along all the time, and that's pretty normal for most kids and their parents, but it might be easier for him to think of the things that his father said as demonically influenced, because then he can forgive his father, but in a way I don't think he ever will. I think he'll always go back and forth over whether or not this was a demon or whether or not it was just my dad. One is less heartbreaking than the other, but both of them are pretty rough. And that is 100% right up a demon's alley. They do not care about the great war between God and the devil. They only care about who they can hurt today. So whether it's influencing someone to completely ruin their lives and the lives of everyone around them, or influencing a man to cuss out his son, for a demon, that's good enough. The problem for us is their good enough can cause echoes of heartbreak that last long past the time of the demon's influence. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have